Okay, so the news has been pretty intense lately regarding Pakistan and India. We're seeing reports of, well, significant military actions, more than just talk.
Definitely more than talk.
Today, we're really going to dive into these developments, try and unpack the recent news, the official statements we're getting from both sides.
Yeah, our aim is basically to get to the heart of what's actually being reported. The key events, the reported casualties, how the governments are officially responding.
Trying to piece together a clearer picture from this initial flurry of information.
Exactly. And we're working from the news articles that broke the story and the official statements that came out afterwards.
Right. So let's start where it seems to have kicked off these reported Indian airstrikes.
Okay, so according to Pakistan's DGISPR, that's their military's public relations wing, this happened, reportedly, on May 7th, 2025.
May 7th.
Yes. And the DGISPR confirmed India launched airstrikes targeting 6 different locations inside Pakistan. What immediately stands out, though, is the reported impact on civilians.
Huge impact, it sounds like. The claim was 26 civilians killed and 46 injured.
That's the number reported by the DGISPR, yes.
And they gave specific locations, didn't they? Which
Yeah.
really paints a picture.
It does. It makes it very concrete. In Bahawalpur's Ahmedpur East, for example, they reported 13 people killed. And the breakdown is stark: 2 little girls, just 3 years old, 7 women, 4 men, plus another 37 injured there.
That's devastating. And it wasn't the only place hit.
No. Near Muzaffarabad, a place called Bilal Mosque was reportedly hit. 3 fatalities there and 2 children injured. Then further north, in Kotli, another mosque, Abbas Mosque, reportedly struck 2 teenagers killed, a 16-year-old girl and an 18-year-old boy.
So multiple locations, civilian casualties, including children. The DGISPR mentioned, 24 strikes in total across these spots?
24 airstrikes in total, hitting those 6 locations. That was the claim.
And beyond the human cost, which is obviously paramount, there was also reporting about infrastructure being targeted.
Yes, and this is potentially very significant. They specifically mention the Nasiri Dam part of the Neelam Jalam hydropower project.
A major hydropower project.
Exactly. And the Pakistani military called this a dangerous escalation. They raised concerns about international humanitarian law, which is supposed to protect vital civilian infrastructure like dams. Targeting something like that could have massive knock-on effects.
And it wasn't just contained to the ground either, was it? It affected air travel too.
Right. The DGISPR noted that at the time these strikes were happening, there were 57 international flights actually in Pakistani airspace.
Wow. That really highlights the risk.
It does. Shows the potential for wider disruption. And importantly, the DGISPR also stated that the Indian strikes came from within India's own airspace. They were very clear that no Indian planes actually crossed the border into Pakistani airspace during these initial strikes.
Okay, so that's the Pakistani account of the Indian action. But Pakistan reportedly responded quite quickly.
Almost immediately, yes. The DGISPR confirmed that Pakistan retaliated. They claimed to have downed 5 Indian fighter jets and 1 combat drone.
5 jets and a drone. Do we know what types?
They specified, actually, claimed 3 Rafale jets, those are the advanced French fighters India operates, plus 1 MiG-29, 1 Su-series aircraft, the Russian Sukhoi family, and an Israeli-made Heron combat drone.
That's a significant claim, a mix of advanced aircraft.
Very significant. And they listed locations for these supposed shootdowns, too.
Where were these?
Bathinda, Jammu, Aknor, Srinagar, and Avantipur. So spread across different areas near the border. The DGISPR emphasized that the Pakistan Air Force only engaged after Pakistan itself was attacked, framing it as defensive.
Defensive action. Now, there was also this other claim, potentially even more escalatory, about hitting an Indian Army base.
Yes, that's a major claim. News reports, citing security sources, said Pakistan struck and destroyed the headquarters of an Indian Army Infantry Brigade, specifically the 12th Infantry Brigade.
The 12th Infantry Brigade HQ.
Part of the 9th Division, 15 Corps. And there were reports that footage of this alleged strike even surfaced. We haven't verified that, of course, but it's part of the narrative coming out.
And Pakistan also framed their response as restrained, didn't they?
They did. The DGISPR added that Pakistan could have hit more than 10 aircraft, but chose not to. Exercised restraint was the term used.
Interesting messaging there. Restraint after claiming 5 jets and a drone down, plus a brigade HQ.
Well, yes. It's all part of shaping the perception, isn't it? They were quite insistent that their response was measured and defensive. And mirroring what they said about India, they claimed their actions didn't violate Indian airspace.
Right. So very specific narratives being built on both sides, it seems. Let's shift to the political leadership. The official statements were pretty strong.
Extremely strong. Pakistan's President Zardari condemned the Indian strikes, called them unprovoked aggression, a breach of international law, and he used the term fascist to describe India's regime.
That's very pointed language.
Very. And Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif called the strikes cowardly, asserted Pakistan's right to respond decisively. He basically framed it as India initiating an act of war.
And this condemnation wasn't just from Islamabad, right? The AJK leadership also spoke out.
Correct. The Prime Minister of AJK, that's Azad Jammu and Kashmir Chaudhry Anwarul Haq, also condemned the strikes and confirmed casualties happened in AJK.
That's the Pakistani-administered side of Kashmir.
Exactly. And reports also mention visual evidence circulating, supposedly showing only non-combatants were hit by the Indian strikes. Pakistan seems to be using this to bolster their argument about civilian targeting.
Okay, so what about the official Indian response? Did they say more beyond just confirming strikes happened?
The Indian Ministry of Defense did put out an official confirmation. They acknowledged conducting airstrikes inside Pakistan. Interestingly, they said 9 separate locations were targeted.
9. Pakistan said 6.
Right, a slight discrepancy there. But the really notable thing from the Indian side was the lack of detail. They confirmed strikes, mentioned 9 locations, but gave no specifics on where exactly or what was targeted.
So a very different level of detail compared to the Pakistani statements.
Very different, almost a deliberate vagueness, perhaps,
Yeah.
which contrasts sharply with the quite specific, though obviously unverified by independent sources yet, claims from Pakistan.
And immediately after these events, things tightened up inside Pakistan. Security measures.
Yes. A red alert was reported at Islamabad's main international airport. All flights suspended there for a time. And Pakistan closed its airspace in that whole region to commercial flights.
Major disruption.
Absolutely. And the DG ISPR held a press briefing late that night, giving many of these details we've discussed. He also added a warning, saying Pakistan reserves the right to respond further, quote, at a time and place of its choosing.
That sounds ominous. Leaves the door open.
It certainly creates uncertainty. And you have to remember the context here. Tensions were already high.
Right. This wasn't out of the blue.
No. Pakistan's defense minister, Khawaja Asif, had actually warned earlier that some kind of clash with India was, in his words, inevitable. And this all follows that deadly attack in IIRJK, Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir.
Which India blamed on Pakistan.
India blamed Pakistan. Pakistan denied it firmly. So these strike and counterstrikes are happening against that backdrop of accusation and deep-seated mistrust.
Got it. And there were just a couple of other things reported too, smaller details.
A few, yeah. Reports of a power blackout in Muzaffarabad after the explosions there kind of underscores the immediate impact.
Right.
Also, Pakistan's telecom authority, the PTA, apparently blocked dozens of Indian websites and YouTube channels. They cited concerns about misinformation spreading online.
Okay, managing the information space.
And one more thing, CNN apparently reported, citing a French intelligence official, that there was confirmation Pakistan had shot down a Rafale jet. That adds another layer, if true.
Okay, wow. So let's try and pull this together. We have India confirming strikes, but staying vague on details. Pakistan providing very specific and quite graphic details of civilian casualties, claiming multiple locations hit, and then detailing their own retaliation downing aircraft, hitting a base while calling it measured. And very strong words from leaders on both sides.
Yeah, the divergence in the narratives is really striking, isn't it? India's relative silence on specifics versus Pakistan's quite detailed account. How the world interprets this could depend a lot on which narrative gains more traction or what independent verification emerges, if any.
It feels like a really serious moment. The rhetoric is hot, the reported actions are significant. Given the history here between two nuclear powers, it's worrying.
Deeply worrying, and that really brings us to the key thing for you listening to this. Given these conflicting reports, this intense situation, what questions immediately jump out at you? What are you wondering about the nature of this conflict right now and how the information itself is being presented?
What more do you feel you'd need to know to really understand what just happened? And maybe more importantly, what might happen next?